ケモンの選択が終わって、ここでアリゲイツの登場だ。さあ、熱いバトルが展開されております。ここで波乗りだ。急に当たった。おっと、ダウンだ。
The retro gaming scene has exploded with emulation machines that play our old cartridges on modern displays. In my collection alone, I have the Atari 2600 Plus that plays 2600 and 7800 cartridges. I have the Retron 5 that plays a few old Nintendo cartridges as well as a few Sega cartridges. I have pre-ordered the Neo Geo AES Plus that of course plays Neo Geo AES cartridges, and while it's not original cartridges, it's their own proprietary cartridges, the Evercade does play physical media that is a bunch of various retro consoles in one. Hi, I'm Paul, and this is Indie Pop Productions, pop culture from an independent point of view. And today, well, remember when I said I was not going to get a Modretro M64, that this year was getting a bit expensive and I was going to have to pick and choose? Apparently, I'm weak. The M64 is a FPGA-based emulation machine that plays Nintendo 64 cartridges through your modern display through HDMI. Now, they are not the first ones. Modretro was not the first ones to the market with this idea. Analog beat them to the market with their Analog 3D by nearly a year. Modretro's M64 has gained quite a bit of popularity in its short life for its flashy colors, its re-releases and new releases of games, as well as its Pro controller and availability being a bit better than analogs. I have to be honest with you guys. I never owned a Nintendo 64. I did discover some of these games years later and loved them, but I have no particular nostalgia for this library. And worse, while very important, I think the early 3D era of gaming has aged very poorly. Now, we all loved it in the moment, and in fact, Sega tanked with the Saturn because they didn't understand exactly how important that moment was. But in retrospect, I think the peak 2D games of the Saturn aged quite a bit better than the early 3D games of the PS1 and the N64, in my opinion. Now, I only tell you that to let you know that I'm going into this with a bit of FOMO, but not a whole lot of nostalgia. So we're going to crack open that console box. We're going to crack open the controller box. We're going to play a couple American games. We're going to play a couple of Japanese games. And then I'll give you my thoughts. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. We are very close to the 500 subscriber mark. When we get there, I'm going to have a special 500 subscriber celebration giveaway. More details on that coming soon. Now, with that out of the way, let's get this thing open and go play some games. We've got the M64 Pro controller here. Nice box, very retro looking. I've heard someone say it's very reminiscent of what you would find on boxes in Japan versus what we usually get in the United States. To open it, you got this little tear slip. Yeah, that is very satisfying. I'm going to acknowledge that is very satisfying. But man, these boxes are part of the collectability of this, and I hate destroying any box. Now there's a box within the box, and that's the prettier of the two boxes, but still, it feels like such a waste to rip that, no matter how how nice it feels. I'm really torn in my opinions on that. The inside box nicer, Modretro, picture of the controller. Nice classy black, very solid feeling. Get that thing opened. Struggle to get this thing open. Looks like it's in there upside down. Feels like that's the direction I should have opened it from, but yeah, everything's in here kind of upside down. Now the controller itself. First we got this. Yeah, this is just going to be a charging cable. It's going to pop that open. You can use this as a Bluetooth controller, but if you like to wire it, this is very traditional style to use it as a wired controller. The controller itself, heavy, very, very solid feeling. Buttons are very clicky. I like the way this feels. It kind of, though, the texture on the back, it's grippy, but man, it kind of feels like you're holding on to sandpaper. I don't really I don't know about that texture. I'm not so sure about that. And here, what is this? Okay, this actually goes in. If you wanted, instead of powering it from the USB-C, you could actually pop actual batteries in there. We've got the M64 itself. Again, same style box. Very cool looking, very retro. And again, like I said, I've heard it's very reminiscent of the Japanese versions. I do like that. But again, gotta rip it. Gotta rip it to get it open. And again, that is very satisfying. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about this. It's not the way I wanted to open the console, by ripping it open. But it's unique. It does set it apart. There, it's sliding out. Much nicer. Okay, same kind of box. Warning. This system is so awesome it may blow your mind. Well, I hope so. My mind is prepared to be blown. Let's find out. Nice box, very classy looking. This is probably what you're going to keep it in if you put it away, since, you know, you've destroyed the outside box. Very small. I don't know why I didn't expect it to be quite as little as it is. It's still got some weight to it. It feels real. It doesn't feel like, you know, a cheap little emulation device. And yeah, especially holding it, you know, flush in my hands. It does. It feels really nice, really quality. Take that off. I love taking, just like ripping it open, you know, despite my feelings on that. Taking the plastic off is very satisfying. Happy to, oh, it's really on there. Doesn't really give you much to grip. There we go. And there we are. So, right out of the box, both the console and the controller need an update. I started with the controller. It's a little weird, can't do it over Wi-Fi. Nothing really odd about that, but you also can't do it by connecting it to the console. You have to connect it to an actual computer. There is a workaround to connect it to a phone or a tablet. I tried connecting to the computer using the included USB-C cable, but nothing happened. Turns out for some reason the included cable is power only, no data. Annoying, but not the end of the world. I have no shortage of data cables. As soon as I got everything connected properly, the updater got everything going, and the update was completed in just a couple minutes. No problems. Can't really tell you what kind of difference this update made, as this was my first time touching it. Updating the console was a different experience. First off, I turned the console on for the first time with Star Fox plugged in. Instead of going directly into a startup menu like most modern consoles, the N64 just loaded up Star Fox. I figured out how to get into the menu and connect to Wi-Fi, but all the while, "We Need Your Help, Star Fox" was playing in the background. From Wi-Fi, I went to System Settings, checked for the update. It took a little longer than the controller update, but not too bad as console updates go. I don't mind the updates. It's new hardware. They're pushing out updates pretty steadily, trying to fix problems as customers find them. That'll level out over time. Then, when the update finally finished, it rebooted right back into the game. Star Fox 64. This is my first time playing any Star Fox game. In fact, I will be playing all 4 of the games I'm going to be playing tonight for the first time. Earlier, I said I discovered some of the N64 games later. By that, I really meant Mario. Super Mario 64, Paper Mario, I like Mario, and I intentionally avoided playing any Mario games in this first video. I'm playing with scan lines on, but not all the way. That did help to smooth the image out. The game froze the first time I played it. I turned the overclocking on about to the middle setting. No problems after that. I've seen options online about what settings to use for the best picture. I'll experiment and let you guys know what I think in a later video. As for Star Fox, it's fun. I played a lot of 70s and 80s shooters this year. It's fun to jump forward a couple generations and remind myself how far games progressed in a relatively short period of time. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link was my first Zelda game, and I loved it. I know it gets a lot of hate now, but it was one of the most played games on my NES. My second Zelda game was Breath of the Wild. Yeah, I get the impression a few things changed between my first 2 Zelda games. Remember, I went from the NES to the Genesis, then from the Genesis to the PlayStation, and stayed PlayStation and Xbox until the Switch. Now, I was playing JRPGs, but it was Final Fantasy that got me into 3D gaming, not Zelda. But I keep hearing that Ocarina of Time was one of the GOATs of JRPGs. One of the first things I noticed was a common thing in RPGs of the time. You get to name your character. I may have loved that at the time. I always have to remind myself that the protagonist of Final Fantasy VIII is not actually named Paul. But for some reason, that doesn't feel right with a Zelda game. I want to play as Link, not as me. So far in the early game, the most exciting thing I've done was help someone cut the grass, for which I was given a heart, which I did not need, because the most exciting thing I had done was help someone cut the grass. But people keep telling me this is the GOAT, so I'll stick with it. Maybe I'll give you guys an update once something happens. Moving over to Japanese cartridges for some Diddy Kong Racing. Most Nintendo home consoles were region locked. You couldn't play Japanese games on an American console and vice versa. Now on the cartridge-based consoles, that was not a software-based lock. It was just a difference in cartridge shape. On the NES, that was a huge difference, but on the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo 64, it was very minor. The M64 solves that problem by having a big enough cartridge slot to fit both shapes. Not being able to read Japanese can cause some problems. That's why I chose Diddy Kong Racing for this video. I've never played the game before, but I figure it's close enough to Mario Kart. The first thing I notice is how hard it is to control. I'm pretty sure it's not the controller. I think I've just been spoiled by playing Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart World on the Switches. The second thing I noticed was the cast of characters. Diddy, Conker, Banjo. It's like Team Mario Kart. I know I'm going to get hate for saying that, but I just kept picturing some kid in Toys R Us back in the 90s begging his mom for Mario Kart, and his mom saying, "We have Mario Kart at home." Pokemon Stadium, also the Japanese version. Now, I'm not the biggest Pokemon fan, but I've played my fair share of the games over the years, usually the mainline RPGs. I was a little excited to play a version of the game that was entirely combat-based. Unfortunately, this is where not being able to read Japanese becomes a problem. Sure, I know the mechanics of a Pokemon battle, but I still need to be able to read which move I'm choosing. What I ended up doing was trying each move once, then trying to remember where on the menu each move was located. The trouble was, by the time I figured each of the moves out, that battle was likely over. I probably need to get US versions of any games that require a lot of reading, but some of these games are much cheaper if you can get the Japanese versions. It might be more cost-effective to just learn Japanese. So I got caught up in the moment. I could admit that. I saw all the other retro gaming content creators playing with the new toy, and I bought something I said I wasn't gonna buy. Being from an era I'm not terribly fond of, I was prepared for buyer's remorse, but that didn't really happen. I am very busy. This isn't my job, and honestly, I've got a lot going on even outside of my job. I don't get to game nearly as much as I would like. Usually what happens is I buy the thing, I make a video about the thing, I may really love the thing, but I move on to the next thing, and I don't really get to think much about the thing again until it's time to make another video about the thing. But with the M64 and the Nintendo 64 library, I found myself at work thinking about going home and just playing some more games, firing up some more cartridges from this library. I started thinking about other videos I could make just so I could have an excuse to play a little more. It's not perfect. Now, I couldn't tell you if it's better or worse than the Analog 3D because I haven't played one. And yeah, I'll probably end up eventually buying a Nintendo 64, an original version, because that's who I am. But I'm gonna give Modretro's M64 the best endorsement I know how to give. Right now, I'm having a lot of fun playing this thing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Liking and subscribing and even commenting and sharing really does help the channel grow. Thank you for watching, especially those that made it all the way to the end. And as always, I'll see you next time.